Hey guys, welcome to another commentary done by Diggity. Upper right hand corner we have Aegistal as the pink Zerg. Upper left hand corner we have Adame KX89, I think that's the way that's pronounced, as the green Protoss. I'm actually unfamiliar with either of these players. This is on Polypoid though, and it is part of BSL Season 11 Choboleague. This is a round of 16 Group A. And I wanted to make a couple comments, actually left myself some notes in the background. Previously, I was talking about if you watch the Scarlet 80s mullet game, I'm like, 80 probes, that's too many. I confirmed that with TT1, who's an excellent Protoss player, and he's saying really you do not want to exceed 70 probes late game for toss, and you really don't want, you want to be mining kind of out of 3, at most 5 bases, and even if you're mining out of 5, you want to keep it really, the saturation just so nice, where you have a single probe on mineral patches, things like that. For Terran, everybody argued that it should be a little bit higher. Gypsy actually said his official count was 69. Nice. But he was saying more 65-ish. And I was also discussing that with TT1, and we were actually saying, by the way, this Overlord Scout going to the upper left-hand corner, so might get an early scout off on his opponent. We'll keep an eye on the Zerg build, because that's where the most variance. We do have an Overlord first. That might drop a spawning pool after that. Yep. People who have been watching live know why I know this, but I will. By the way, you can watch this live at twitch.tv/DiggitySC when I'm doing it. I think I'm going to try to cast Tuesdays and Thursdays around 10 p.m. We'll see if that holds. Anyway, continuing with the rest of the discussion. Number of SCVs late game. Everybody was kind of arguing that actually you can have a higher count you can get away with it a little bit more for turn 1 because you plop buildings and they need to return. Looks like we're going to get an initial SCV scout from Adame straight into Aegistal's base, by the way, so he's going to get all that nice, juicy Protoss scouting information. But essentially you want to have a higher SCV count maybe later his turn. You can get away with it more because, you know, there's things you can do with the SCVs, like repairing your mech. Oftentimes there's more shenanigans that are happening in your back SCV line where you're getting storm dropped or arbiter dropped. 3 probes in gas, so it looks like we are going to see kind of more of a standard, but we are getting an initial zealot to put some pressure. I think you guys are all aware of the current 973 meta if you've been listening to other commentaries. But anyway, that came up, and I think both the Nesh versus Machine and 80s versus Scarlet matches looks like we are going to see a hatchery after this Aegistal, producing a couple Zerglings though. So might be able to get some pressure done on the front door. It looks like Zealot just providing blockade. Interestingly enough, we're seeing a gateway first with no continued pressure, waiting for that second. So he's going to wait for both Zealots to move across. Maybe he just wants to deny that scout. But hasn't set up anything in the natural expansion, which is a little bit off meta these days. Usually you still do see a fast expand. He's actually dropping a cybernetics core, so maybe we're going to see early DTs with early Corsair, and we have a sneaky hatchery. Interesting. Sneaky hatchery at the bottom right-hand corner. Well, there's a bit of... I'll talk about it at the end. Probe Scout moving its way around. Looks like it got damaged and chased off, but the Zerglings lost it. They don't know... Wow. Aegistal kind of playing in the dark, and this is information he really needs to know. He needs to know that this is a gateway build. This is more of something along these lines, and I'm wondering if we're going to go for some sort of interesting quick Zealot speed attack. This is one interesting thing about Choboleague. So we do... Okay, in-base Stargate and Zealots, and this is looking more like a 2000 prior to my deep knowledge of professional StarCraft build order. So we'll see what this turns into, but I think this is going to be a quick Zealot Corsair pressure off one base sort of build. Overlord is sneaking in. It's going to get a look at absolutely everything. Dragoon's being built maybe to kill that Overlord to deny some of that scouting information, but I'm almost wondering if we're just going to see one base Zealot leg speed. There's a Citadel now, and I think, if I am remembering correctly, that will come out around the 8-minute mark. Opposite side, we are starting to see some mining. Not any sort of push towards the 973 build thus far, because there haven't been any sort of drone transfer or build up at either of the additional expansions. Perhaps waiting to see what's there. Looks like I missed a single Zergling getting killed on the front, because it looks like a couple others have been damaged. Then Overlord might be able to might get taken out by this Dragoon that's hammering at it on the front. Maybe if these Zealots... Honestly, if these Zealots move out of the way, I think this Dragoon plus that Zealot pressure might have had a chance at it. Instead, here he goes. So moving the Zealots off the front looks like he is going to get a chance. This could be devastating, actually, for Aegistal, because against this early pressure like this, these early pressure builds, you want to have your Overlords up in the air so you have lots of supplies. You can build lots of Zerglings and things like that to counter. And this is going to be difficult. I got to give the advantage to Aegistal overall. He has 3 bases. He's got a lot of Zerglings that he can produce if he has the larva to do so. He does have his Hydralisk stun down. I'm a little concerned that... Okay, looks like the Corsairs are going to be uncountered. So might lose that Overlord as well. But he did not save Larva to build additional Zerglings to deal with the Zealot Dragoon coming in. And a drone coming off the line. The drone really needs to turn into a creep colony at this stage. More drones coming off the line to try to provide some additional defense. Finally, the drones fleeing to the main, but there is nothing to stop these 3 Zealots and this Dragoon. So this might be an early GG just off this early pressure. I think Aegistal, if he had just saved economy, saved Larva, he might have been able to fight this off with just Zerglings and Hydralisks. Instead, he is just bleeding economy. But oddly enough, this is still very recoverable. So Zealot's doing some damage in the main. He's still sitting at 18 probes. He still has 3 bases up, keep in mind. He's trying to counterattack with a couple Zerglings. Looks like there is a photon cannon going through, so the Zerglings actually might be able to get some damage done in the meantime. Looks like the Zealots were taken out on the front, but not before Aegistal's down to 3 base supplies, so he's going to have to get it done with what he has left. It looks like one of those Zealots ran back. He's already got 3 kills. The cannon was canceled on the front. The Zergling's going to be able to only sneak in to get wiped out by a Dark Templar at best, or have a photon cannon take them out, but getting scouting information otherwise, honestly, too little too late. He knows the Dark Templar is here, but he doesn't have an Overlord anywhere near the front position. Honestly, he doesn't have a lot of Overlords to speak of, period. And he still hasn't taken care of the Corsairs that are just absolutely devastating his supply count in that regard. So despite having a sizable economy, he's just going to have to sacrifice Zerglings to these DTs is what it comes down to, and maybe try to wipe out his opponent just by doing a Zergling Flood. Oof, this is looking rough for him, though. Working on that front pylon, still not attacking there, having some trouble micromanaging. Trying to get a Evolution Chamber down so that he can get a Spore Colony, perhaps, in that back area, but he's sitting just at 19 supply. 16 of that supply is in drones. So this is it as far as Zerglings go. Plus, once these DTs get out here, they're going to be able to wreak havoc, and he still has nothing. As soon as these Overlords build, he needs to get some Hydralisks or something so he can deal with the Dark Templar that are going to be slowly moving their way to his base. The one advantage here is this bottom left-hand corner, which is hidden. That has not been scouted, but here you can see that DT is just going to be able to walk in. There's no Overlord there either, so this drone line is completely sacked, honestly. And even if an Overlord did spawn, there's Corsairs overhead, just going to wipe out everything. Oof. I got to give this game to Adame at this stage. It's still recoverable, oddly enough, by Aegistal. Range is finished right there. Now, second DT with no defenses, just a single Hydralisk, going to take out the rest of the drones, and that drone count, actually no, now I'm going to give it to Adame, hands down. Before I'm like, okay, he can sneak back into this, but I think that is going to be all she wrote, because he is sitting at 9 drones, additional Overlords killed, not a lot to kill this. Yes, he can detect the Overlord, but even if he recovers out of this, that's a natural expansion up, plus 30 probes to do some additional saturation. All Adame has to do is plop down a lot of additional gateways, something along those lines, and that will be the match effectively. Right now, Aegistal, I think, is just hoping and praying that this bottom left-hand base does not get discovered so to continue to maybe sneak back into this match somehow. But he still has had no answer for these just 2 Corsairs that are up in the air. I think he managed to take out one Dark... No, he's not. He hasn't even managed to take out a Dark Templar. 14 kills on that Dark Templar. This Dark Templar might... Oh, and he moved all of this army into an area where there's no detection otherwise. Now the Dark Templar is stuck in the bottom left-hand corner. The Creep Colony just planting, but honestly, 2 Zerglings versus one Dark Templar is not a good situation. So I think now that this space has been discovered, that he's down to 5 drones and 11 supply, which is basically starting supply, right? I think that should be GG. Honestly, I'm surprised he hasn't GG'd much earlier, given the overall situation. There's GG. So Aegistal drops game 1. We'll move on to game 2 momentarily. Now I will give the shoutouts that I wanted to give otherwise. Mars. So if you enjoyed Mars Cheese Terran style, also found out he was Energy Prospect. So he's actually an old schooler, was part of Yankee League back in the day. You can check his channel out at twitch.tv MAARSBW. That's Mars Boudoir. He doesn't stream super often, but he does stream. And he actually had some comments on his match, which I wanted to share, which is he did the 2 factory on Polypoid in response to the Rax Command Center first build, which Scan talked about on Artosis's screen as a good counter to that build overall. So it wasn't just straight cheese, it was, I know what to do against this because Scan has talked about it. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that game. A little bit rough, honestly, but we will move on to game 2 between Aegistal and Adame KX momentarily.